There's a spiritual mystery most people never talk about, but you've probably felt it your whole life. It's the quiet burden you've carried, the inner knowing that you're different, that you were sent into your family not just to survive, but to shift, to break, and to rebuild. While your siblings may have walked one path, God placed something heavier on your shoulders. It's not favoritism, it's not injustice, it's divine selection. Every family has one, a chosen one. And when that role falls on you, life stops being ordinary. If this message reaches your soul, it's not by accident. God has been trying to remind you who you are. And this video is your confirmation. You are not crazy, you are not weak, you are chosen, and chosen ones often walk a lonely, misunderstood path. If you've ever wondered why life hit you harder, why you think deeper, why you see clearer than your siblings, keep watching. And if this message reached you exactly when you needed it most, type 1111 in the comments section as a sign of divine alignment. Don't forget to subscribe, because God's not done revealing your purpose yet. 1. You were born with spiritual sensitivity. Even as a child you were different, and not because of something you did, but because of something you carried. Long before you knew what spirituality meant, your spirit was already tuned to frequencies others couldn't hear. You noticed the heaviness in a room before anyone said a word. You could feel the silent rage beneath your father's quietness, or the sorrow hiding in your mother's smile. While other children played without a care, you were internalizing the emotions of others, decoding unspoken pain, and absorbing the spiritual atmosphere like a sponge. This wasn't just emotional intelligence, it was spiritual sensitivity. God made you this way for a reason. You were wired with discernment because He knew the family you were born into would require a spiritual lifeguard. You weren't supposed to be blind to the dysfunction. You were assigned to see it. In a house full of people who numbed their pain with denial, God gave you the burden and blessing of awareness. This made you feel isolated, even crazy at times. But you weren't crazy, you were called. What others labeled too emotional was actually divine perception. And while they scoffed or ignored the early signs of spiritual trouble, you carried a radar for danger, truth, and deception. Your tears weren't weakness, they were evidence of your alignment with God's heart. In a family full of sleepers, you were the alarm clock. And though that role is exhausting, never forget, it's proof that God handpicked you for a greater spiritual mission. 2. You ask the questions no one else dares to ask. From a young age, you've been the one who couldn't accept the surface-level version of things. While your siblings and relatives went along with tradition, you were the one brave, or perhaps burdened, enough to ask the uncomfortable questions. Why is no one talking about the pain in this house? Why do we keep pretending everything is okay? Why does this pattern keep repeating through generations? These weren't just questions, they were divine nudges. God plants holy curiosity in the minds of those He calls. And while others interpret your probing as rebellion or arrogance, heaven sees it as obedience to a higher calling. You weren't trying to cause conflict, you were trying to make sense of chaos. Your soul craved truth the way others craved comfort. And that hunger led you to confront the very demons your family tried to ignore. This is exactly why God chose you. The chosen aren't silent observers, they're truth tellers. They're the ones who peel back the layers, who refuse to settle for deception, who shine light into places others want to keep dark. And yes, it's a lonely road. Yes, it puts a target on your back. But understand this. Your questions are your weapon. They break generational silence. They unlock suppressed memories. They force demons into the light. And most of all, they honor God, because truth is one of heaven's greatest currencies. You weren't being rebellious. You were answering a divine summons. Your curiosity isn't a curse, it's a calling. 3. You suffered the most, but grew the deepest. It wasn't fair. While others seemed to glide through life with support, validation, and ease, you were met with constant resistance. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the forgotten one. You carried more burdens than anyone saw. The betrayal, the isolation, the abandonment. You felt them all deeply. But what your family didn't know was this: while they were avoiding pain, you were being forged by it. God doesn't elevate anyone He hasn't first processed. And you, dear chosen one, were being processed through fire. The furnace of affliction you endured wasn't to destroy you, it was to strengthen you. Your rejection became your redirection. Your wounds became portals of wisdom. You developed spiritual muscle while others remained fragile. What hurt you also humbled you. What broke you also birthed you. And that contrast is what makes you different. You didn't just go through pain, you grew through it. God allowed it not because He was cruel, but because He was preparing you for spiritual leadership. He knew that the weight of your calling would require depth of character. You couldn't afford to be shallow. You needed to be rooted, anchored, unshakable, and suffering did that for you. So while others saw a victim, heaven saw a vessel, a chosen vessel being molded, refined, and matured. Pain became your teacher, your anointing oil, your secret weapon. And today, every scar you carry is a reminder, not of defeat, but of divine development. You were chosen not in spite of your pain, but through it. 4. You're the first to feel the burden of generational curses. There's a weight that settled on your shoulders early in life, a weight you couldn't quite name. It felt like pressure, exhaustion, heaviness. You carried emotions that weren't yours. You cried for reasons you couldn't explain. You felt spiritual warfare before you knew what spiritual warfare was. That was no accident. That was spiritual inheritance. In every family, the dysfunction, trauma, and unhealed wounds of generations past seek a host. But in rare cases, God interrupts the cycle by assigning one soul to break the curse. That's you. You weren't born into ease, you were born into a battlefield. The spiritual curses, addiction, abuse, poverty, shame, may have ravaged your bloodline, but they stopped with you. And that's why the burden feels unbearable at times. You're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for your children, your siblings, and even your ancestors. Every time you say, "This ends with me," heaven records it. God chose you because He saw the warrior in you. He saw the strength you didn't know you had. And though the burden is real, so is the blessing. You are the transitional generation, the one that shifts the family from bondage to breakthrough. Others may never understand what you're carrying. They may mock you for your convictions or dismiss your pain. But God sees, and heaven celebrates every small victory you claim. You weren't cursed, you were called, and your calling comes with the power to shift history. That's why the pressure is so intense, because the purpose is eternal. 5. You don't fit the family mold. You've always felt like an outsider in your own family, not because you tried to be different, but because you were. While others were content with fitting in, you questioned everything. You didn't resonate with the gossip, the shallowness, the toxicity. You wanted purpose while they chased pleasure. You longed for peace while they normalized chaos. And that difference made you feel isolated. But that isolation was confirmation. God doesn't call those who blend in, He calls those who stand out. Your inability to conform wasn't rebellion, it was a reflection of your spiritual DNA. The chosen ones rarely look like the people around them. That's because they were sent to transform, not to conform. You were never meant to echo dysfunction, you were meant to disrupt it. You see life through a spiritual lens, and while others scoff at your convictions, you stay anchored. Because deep down, you know you were marked for something more. And that more requires you to be different. You weren't designed to fit into a system God assigned you to reform. You may have been mocked, misunderstood, or even mistreated for being too deep, too intense, or too sensitive. But the truth is, you were too chosen to be average. Your uniqueness isn't a flaw, it's your fingerprint from heaven. Embrace your difference, protect it. It's the very thing that qualifies you to do what others can't. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out and lead. 6. God gave you dreams others can't understand. There's a reason you've had visions that made you wake up in tears. There's a reason you've received dreams so vivid they haunted you for days. God speaks in ways the world dismisses. And He chose you to be a receiver. From a young age, you've seen things others haven't. Maybe you dreamt of preaching, creating, healing, or breaking cycles. Maybe you saw yourself doing things no one in your family ever dared to imagine. And when you shared those dreams, people laughed, or worse, ignored you. But that didn't stop the dream. Because when God plants a seed in a chosen vessel, no one can uproot it. Those dreams aren't random. They're divine assignments. God gave you a blueprint, and even if no one around you believes in it, He does. That's why He keeps confirming it. That's why you feel that inner pull, that divine restlessness, that whisper saying, "There's more." You weren't made for small thinking. You were designed for kingdom vision. And though the dream seems crazy, impossible, or premature, trust the one who gave it. God doesn't reveal things for fun. He reveals to prepare. You were chosen to see what others can't so you can build what others won't. Protect that vision. Don't water it down for approval. Don't abandon it for applause. It's sacred. And if God showed it to you, He'll make it come to pass in His time. 7. You're the one they all come to when life falls apart. They may not say it, but they feel it. In the middle of their chaos, when life starts unraveling, you are the one they call. Not the loudest, not the richest, not the most socially accepted, but you, because they sense something different about you, something stable, grounded, peaceful. That something is God. He made you the spiritual pillar of your family. And while that role is often thankless, it's undeniable. They mocked your convictions, rolled their eyes at your prayers, ignored your advice, but when the storms hit, they come running. That's not coincidence. That's calling. God positioned you as an intercessor, as the watchman on the wall, as the counselor, the prayer warrior, the spiritual first responder. And even though it feels unfair, because you're the one who gets drained, who never gets poured into, who carries everyone else's weight, it's actually a divine trust. God trusts you with the emotional stability of others. He trusts you to speak life into death, to bring order to chaos, to remind your family of heaven when they've forgotten who they are. You may not have a title or a pulpit, but you carry anointing. And that's what they're drawn to, even if they don't know how to say it. Your quiet presence shifts atmospheres. Your prayers carry power. Your wisdom restores hope. You were chosen to be the backbone when everything else falls apart. Never underestimate the weight or the honor of that assignment. 8. Your conscience is more sensitive than theirs. There's a sensitivity in you that others don't seem to carry. While people around you can lie, manipulate, gossip, and justify their actions without a second thought, you can't. When you even think of doing something wrong, your spirit gets uneasy. When you do something that goes against God's will, even slightly, it feels like your whole soul aches. That's not weakness, that's not overthinking, that's a spiritual alarm system. You've been wired differently. Your conscience is deeply connected to heaven. And because you are called, God won't allow you to wander far without correction. You'll notice how people around you can continue in toxic behaviors for years without conviction. But you? One wrong move, and you're on your knees in tears, asking God for forgiveness. That's because He's preserving your purity, your calling, and your authority. The chosen can't afford to live like everyone else. You're called to a higher standard, not out of legalism, but out of purpose. God can't elevate someone whose spirit is numb. He needs your conscience sharp, responsive, clean. That sensitivity is sacred. It allows you to discern what others miss. It gives you early warnings. It protects you from spiritual danger. It keeps you aligned when the world is drifting into deception. And yes, it can feel like a burden, to feel everything so deeply, to carry the weight of what's right and wrong so personally. But know this, that burden is a blessing. It means God trusts you, and He only disciplines those He loves. Your sensitive spirit is not a flaw, it's divine design. 9. You're being prepared to lead the family spiritually. You may not feel ready, you may not even want the responsibility, but deep in your spirit, you know there is a mantle on your life. One day, maybe not today, but someday, the same family that ignored your words, mocked your dreams, and dismissed your faith will look to you for guidance. They'll come not because you forced them to, but because life humbled them, because God exalted you, and because they'll recognize something in you they never saw before: spiritual authority. That's what this entire journey has been about. Every trial, every heartbreak, every lonely night, it's all been preparation. God wasn't punishing you, He was preparing you to become the spiritual leader of your family. The Moses, the Esther, the Joseph, the one who carries revelation, the one who knows how to pray when no one else can. the one who's been in the fire and came out carrying glory. You're not being trained to dominate, but to deliver, to love, to heal, to intercede. You'll be the one breaking generational curses, standing in the gap, covering your family in prayer while they sleep. That's why you couldn't live like them. That's why God isolated you. The anointing on your life would have been choked if you stayed blended in. And yes, the weight is heavy, but so is the destiny. You're not just chosen for yourself, you're chosen for your bloodline. When the time comes, don't shrink back. Being chosen isn't about pride, it's about responsibility. God doesn't pick the most perfect, He picks the most willing. And if you've made it this far, chances are, you are the one in your family who sees what others can't, feels what others don't, and hears what others ignore. It's time to embrace that truth. You are not alone. Heaven is backing you. This is the Chosen Seer channel. If this message confirmed something deep in your soul, type 1111 in the comments. Let it be your sign that divine timing brought you here. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because your spiritual journey is just getting started. You're not watching this by chance. You're being activated. You are the chosen one, and your family's freedom may depend on you. Thank you for watching.